One of my favorite areas of text and chat programs, especially online, relates to the social changes that happen because of them. So in this video, I'm going to cover the social changes that Skype has caused, or the social impacts. But first, let's start off with the social changes that were due to IRC and also ICQ. So sticking with IRC to start with, in business situations, coworkers no longer had to get up and ask a question or talk to another employee if they had an active internet connection and access to IRC. They could simply log into IRC and connect with each other on a channel. IRC made telecommuting, working from home or working from another location possible, as people could communicate in real time. Of course, the one caveat to this is that back then dial-up was the basic method of internet connection, so there does become a question of how real time it was unless somebody actually had a fast internet connection or their dial-up connection was stable. New relationships could be formed between people who would have otherwise met due to location. IRC provided an opportunity to learn, as the program was and still is popular among computer programmers. It gave users access to media they may not have otherwise had access to, as it was one of the first programs where media and files could be shared between users via customized IRC bots. And since IRC allows synchronous communication, peers who do not live close to each other could use it to make plans, communicate with each other, and share local information. Going back to that, peers that do live close to each other, but if you didn't live close to each other, the same could be done. Users with the right equipment, such as servers, could create their own IRC network, and it could also be used on college campuses by students and staff to communicate about studies, make plans, or tutor each other. Two things that were interesting about IRC and social changes is that due to a media blackout, the IRC was used to real-time report on the Soviet coup d'etat attempt. IRC was also used for real-time reporting during the Gulf War. Those are two things that have never happened before: real-time online updates about social situations and political situations going on around the world. People could just log into IRC, join the channel, and that they could be kept up to date. And that was one of these IRC made that possible, and it was one of the first instances of that happening. And then those who were active and had access to IRC could know about what was happening around the world before the major news outlets even knew. Moving on to ICQ, as funny as it sounds, one of the big impacts socially for ICQ was the sound, because there was the annoying uh-oh sound that played every time a user got a message, and uh-oh has now been pinned to ICQ, so whenever somebody hears the sound uh-oh, they automatically think about ICQ if they ever use the program. And on my Google Sites page, I included that sound in a YouTube video. So if you go ahead and play that, go to the site and play that, you'll be able to hear the sound. Scrolling down to social changes, it once again provided real-time communication for anybody who had a computer and an internet connection. People were able to communicate with friends, family, and strangers in real time. Users were and are at risk for isolation since it replaces face-to-face or other types of communication. Many of the social changes surrounding ICQ did not start to come to light until after the year 2000, as it took a few years to gather information pertaining to how users were using the program and whether or not there were social consequences. According to ICQ.com and the About Us page, it says that the developers of ICQ had realized that people were connected to the internet but that they were not interconnected. And I put that for Module 4 as well. ICQ holds the record for the highest download rate for a startup company in the history of the internet. Users can randomly connect to people, and therefore it's easy to meet new people from other areas around the world and from other cultures. And users can also connect with those who share the same interests as them. Users didn't have to leave the house or pick up the phone to connect with friends or family. File transfers could be made. It was popular among college students. College students preferred to use instant messaging twice as much as other internet users. Arguments, however, can be made that instant messaging programs such as ICQ can increase communication between peers or form relationships that wouldn't otherwise exist. According to a survey taken of 120 college students, students feel more apt to flirt or say things on instant messaging than they would otherwise say. This goes back to why and how they use the program. And flirting on IM programs such as ICQ revolves around students feeling less pressure. Users of ICQ seek relaxation, fashion, and entertainment information. That goes back to uses and gratification. And users can instantly connect with complete strangers by typing in random UINs, which are known as user identification numbers or ICQ user numbers. To sum up the social impacts of IRC and ICQ, people use the programs to chat in real time. They use the programs to form relationships, to continue relationships, to acquire media, to report on news events, to share information, and also to seek and find the media that they wanted, and to possibly say things they wouldn't say otherwise in person. And both programs could have also been used for work-related purposes as well as personal purposes. Users spent a great deal of time on IRC and ICQ if they like to chat in real time with friends or strangers. So therefore, people were spending time on their computers chatting with their friends as opposed to being out and interacting with them socially. And with internet dating being as popular as it is today, let's not forget that when people randomly connected on ICQ or IRC, that relationships could be formed much in the same way people form internet relationships today that can sometimes turn into real relationships. So now let's compare how Skype stacks up to IRC and ICQ. As we already know, Skype includes a lot of the same functions or similar functions that IRC and ICQ included back in the late 80s to late 1990s. And I found this infographic on webpronews.com, which is very interesting, that very well depicts the social impacts of Skype and users using Skype. There are over 300 million minutes of video minutes on Skype per day. What this means is that every single day, people are using the program for 300 million minutes and video chatting on the program. Calls can be made from and to multiple platforms, and socially this means that people don't need to have the same devices or even the same sort of device. They just need to have an internet connection which is fast enough to access the platform. So one person can be using a computer, one person can be traveling with their cell phone, another person can be using a landline, another person can be using broadband phone, or anything of that sort. There's multiple devices that can be used, and therefore people have easier access to Skype since they don't actually need an expensive computer or even an expensive cell phone. They can use a phone that's already in their home. What's also very interesting is that video calls account for approximately 42% of all Skype to Skype minutes. This means that a good majority of people prefer seeing each other face to face on Skype than they do using it for other manners. Another interesting statistic is that there's 1.8 billion hours of video calls made per year, and then it compares to the number of hours of Hollywood movies every year and the average year spent watching TV in a lifetime. So it's plainly obvious that a lot of people spend a lot of hours on Skype using the video chat or conferencing feature. And this is a great part of the infographic where it says, who are you calling? Loved one, mom, or in US, mom. Doing work-related stuff, friends. If you're away and you're missing home, or if you have a secret lover and you don't want anybody to know about it, you could use Skype for that as well. So as you can see, Skype is used to communicate with people you already know, such as your friends, your family, your spouse, your children. It's also used for work, so you can telecommute, and so you can work pretty much anywhere in the world that you want to work, which programs such as Skype and previous to that IRC and ICQ have really paved the way for telecommuters, people who want to work from home. And what this has done even more so, because I work from home as well, my husband and I had some health issues with one of our children when he was a little bit younger, and I left my corporate job and started working from home for various clients, and that's what I still do today. And if it wasn't for things like Skype or instant messaging online, it would be very, very difficult, because the other option would be to use email, which isn't as efficient when people are trying to collaborate together. So I can say firsthand socially that when it comes to work, Skype is a great asset to have, and also my kids use it to talk with their grandparents who live about 6 hours away. So whenever they're missing grandma and grandpa, they can just log onto the computer, use Skype, and call them and video conference with them, and they can see them in person. So not only does it allow people to form new relationships, but it also allows people to continue personal friendships, relationships with family, romantic relationships, or business relationships that they might not otherwise be able to continue if they didn't have access to a platform that provided so many options for people to communicate with each other. People who are deployed in the military also can use Skype to call home and video conference home to see their spouses, girlfriends, boyfriends, children, mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters. An interesting one that I noted on the graphic here was watch your baby being born. I guess if somebody has to be away from work or they can't make it home, they're delayed at an airport or something, and their child's being born, whoever would have thought you could watch a live birth. So there's another big social impact, that you don't even have to be present in physical form to watch major life events such as weddings and childbirths and graduations and things like that. So the social impacts of Skype are present both on a personal level, but also on a business and working level as well. People use it for both reasons. They use it to video conference for personal reasons, work reasons. They chat, they send files, images, videos. They can do it with or without a computer. They can do it with or without a cell phone. So essentially, people can connect with anybody else around the world they want to connect with, in some cases completely free of charge. The only negative, speaking of that though, is that if you're not calling another person on Skype or video conferencing with another person on Skype, the money issue does come into play. So continuing with social aspects, people who don't have access to funds to pay for Skype might not be as apt to use it, or they might not connect with their family, friends, and coworkers on the same level that somebody who can afford to actually pay for a Skype subscription or pay per minute. So there is financial reasons why people wouldn't use Skype, as opposed to people who don't have to worry about how they're going to pay to use Skype. For me personally, it's been very interesting to go to programs like IRC, ICQ, AOL Instant Messenger, Windows Messenger, Yahoo Messenger, also moving on to things including chat rooms in there. Chat rooms were popular back in the late 90s, early 2000s, where people could log on to a web system. They didn't even need a program. All they needed was their internet browser. And then, of course, moving on to ways of communications that most people know today, such as using Skype, Facebook, Twitter, and of course text messaging via smartphones and non-smartphones. But going back to IRC and ICQ, those two programs, by having the functionality that they had in the beginning, and by users realizing that they could connect with people on those programs, both people they knew and people that they didn't know, it opened up a whole world of opportunity, and people became accustomed to being able to text, chat, or even see each other on the computer in real time. And so I'm going to end the social with impacts with the thought about how it might make a person feel when it comes to having that real-time option there, because since you can connect with people on a regular basis online, people also might face rejection on a higher level, or be more concerned about people if they aren't always readily available. And in the next video, tying into readings and wrapping up. Thanks.